Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection or even parameters. And people who take your boundaries as punishment are typically indicating something very telling. I talked about boundaries earlier this week and in the sense of understanding what they are and what the requirements are to actually establish a genuine boundary. But let's talk about the other side of it. How, when you do set boundaries, or you might be fearful of having a boundary because of how it may be perceived, like what that means. See, I always say the rule of thumb is this: if you're afraid of setting a boundary with a person or in a place, that's probably where the boundary needs to be set every single time, okay? And I know a boundary sounds like I'm throwing down the gauntlet, right? It's a declaration of war, or I don't want to be in a relationship with you. That's my boundary, right? But that's not what a boundary has to be. There have been times where boundaries were set with me, or I even had to set a boundary. Someone says, "Hey, look, I'm usually, for example, I'm in the studio at this time, so I can hit you back after, or I'm doing this, and this. I'll be gone for a couple days, but can we pick back up later? Like, I need this time to do what I do. Bet, say less." For myself, it could be the same thing. Or a boundary is like, "Hey, look, in terms of communication, this is how I receive communication. This is what's important for us to move forward. Is that cool?" Or, "Hey, I'm working at these hours. This is when I'm available." I talked about this, right, on a professional level. But what about in personal relationships? Okay. See, a lot of times the people who perceive your boundary as punishment are kind of trying to manipulate the situation. Now, on the other side of that, there are people who are trying to manipulate the situation but call it a boundary. And when you kind of, uh, pro- what's the word I'm looking for? When you object. Thank you. I was like, project? I was like, no, we're not projected. It's like object. When you object, then now you are pushing their boundaries, right? You are not respecting their boundaries. And this is why the conversation needs to happen. And the reason why is because people will latch onto words and it's like, "Oh yeah, this sounds good. Yeah, this is a boundary. I'm gonna go out and use that." Right? And then it's like, you get a boundary, you get a boundary, you get a boundary. And in reality, you haven't set a boundary. You are just trying to control the dynamics of people. And anytime somebody actually calls you on it, "Oh, now you're disrespecting my boundaries. I can't be bothered with you. Now I got to protect my peace," etc. Rinse, wash, repeat. That's different, okay? Because a person who is weaponizing the concept of boundaries, you will recognize that you walk on eggshells with them, or they themselves are emotionally reactive when you respond with your own peace of mind, your own boundaries, all right? When we think about boundaries, I want you to always consider this. A boundary is meant to sustain a relationship within the natural parameters, okay? So there's no overspill, there's no leakage, there's no dysfunction, things don't go off rails. That's what a boundary is meant for. How can we sustain a healthy relationship? And again, going back to this, sometimes the healthiest relationship you will have with some people is not having one at all, okay? And people may say, "Well, that's not fair." Actually, it kind of is. Because if I'm not put in a space to constantly protect myself, you're not put in a position to eventually feel the wrath of me having to protect myself from you. So yeah, us not having a relationship is probably the healthiest for both of us, especially since you don't know how to treat me. Okay? And when it comes to family, right, a lot of times this concept of boundaries is dismissed. Sometimes it's a cultural thing. Or if there is a certain level of dominance and authoritarian practices in the family space, a boundary is immediately treated like disrespect. How dare you? Right? What is a boundary? I'm the adult. Okay? Even when you are an adult, I'm the adult. All right? And in family spaces, it gets very clouded because a lot of times there's guilt, there's shame. "Oh man, well, this is my mom or my dad, or this is my sibling. I can't set boundaries with them because, that's family. Family is supposed to show up." And whenever somebody uses that phrase, and that lets me know so many things. First of all, when it comes to family and being family, it goes both ways. Like, family is not just this accessory that one person gets to use and the other person um, kind of allows themselves to be abused, right? Because you're family, you should treat me poorly. Because you're family, I should be okay with it because that's what family does. Huh? Right? So it always works in somebody's favor. Because we're family, I should be able to treat you poorly. Because we're family, you should also still be showing up for me, right? Those are the rules of engagement, and that doesn't work, okay? And the thing about it is this: when you don't have boundaries and when you're not taking care of yourself, when you are not having boundaries for yourself, you will walk through the world very bitter, very prickly, very reactive, very confused, very lost, and also very scared, but also with a lack of identity in terms of who you are. Right? That's where people pleasing kind of lives, because it's like, well, I realize I have to be everything for everybody else. There is no room for me. So let me just play nice and make sure that everybody is cool with me. Let's make sure that I'm tolerable. Okay? And then you lash out, right? And then that gives people the reason to be like, oh, well, they were cool a minute ago, but now they're just being weird. Or they took their frustrations out on me. Well, you were probably frustrated with that person for quite some time, right? And this is why boundaries are super important, because it keeps you from always hitting your maximum capacity. I was having a conversation with a client the other day. It was like, I used the concept of an elevator. You ever get into an elevator and you see on the wall, it says maximum capacity is like, what, is it 10,000 pounds or is it 1,000 pounds? I don't know. But maximum capacity is this amount of weight. But it's very rare that you will see that capacity come even close, right? Having the capacity for something is not always the commitment to test that capacity. And I think when it comes to us as people, the goal in life is to not get to the point where you crash out. The goal is to not even get there, right? You're not supposed to hit that threshold all the time. That shouldn't always be tested, okay? I think I used this example before. It's like, if I go into the gym and I know, let's say I could squat 415 pounds, right? I know that that's my max. I know I can squat that, and I can do it with pretty decent ease. I know I can do that. But am I squatting that every day? No. Why? Because that will wear my body down. My joints will hurt. The recovery is a lot longer. I can't function in other spaces that I still need to show up in, all because I decided to squat 415 pounds for an hour's time, still not taking into consideration how many days, hours, minutes, and moments I have to be responsible for and still show up for later. The same thing when it comes to us testing our constant capacity, right? Not having boundaries, not communicating, not asking for what we need, not being what we need. Because it's very easy to say, well, this person's not doing this. Well, are you putting yourself in that position? Because now you're responsible for you. And that starts to look different. A lot of times we fail to realize it's like, people can only do certain things with a certain level of permission, right? It's invite only. A lot of times someone's lack of consideration, someone's disrespect, okay? Someone's maltreatment and mismanagement is invite only. All right. If the rule is, hey, take your shoes off when you come in the home, and somebody comes in with their shoes on, and instead of you saying something, no, you're here, you go in, you wipe up the shoe prints, and everywhere they go in the house, you're following behind them with a cloth, and you're wiping up the shoe prints. And each time you get more and more aggravated until finally you explode. Instead of saying, hey, shoes off before you step in, okay? That's the rule, shoes off. You don't want to take your shoes off? Hey, we can meet at a cafe or something like that, but that is respect for my space. And that's going to allow us to exist in this space well, right? Literally and metaphorically speaking, or figuratively speaking. And when it comes to your relationships, it's important to say, hey, do I adhere to my own boundary? Okay? I won't be on my phone doom scrolling till 10 at night, knowing damn well I gotta wake up in a couple of hours. Right? That's a boundary. I make sure that I'm not eating junk food through the week. Okay? I haven't done that. I save that for the weekend. Right? That's a boundary. Okay? I make sure I go to the gym 3 times a week between this time and this time. That's a boundary. Boundaries are protection, right? And if you're setting boundaries with yourself and parameters with yourself and meeting your own standards, then now you have an idea and an emotional ecosystem of what it looks and feels like. And when you step into the world, again, this is to keep things and people healthy, right? You not doom scrolling, that's keeping you mentally and emotionally healthy, but also allowing you to rest properly. You going to the gym consistently throughout the week at a certain time, that's keeping you regimented and disciplined. That's a boundary, protects you, right? You not eating junk food throughout the week, that's protecting you. Your ability to function, your ability to show up in spaces with a clear head and mind, especially if you're in a stressful workspace, right? That protects you. Boundaries, true boundaries are meant to protect you. And then when you step into a relationship with other people, how am I protecting this relationship? How am I protecting us in it? And a lot of times how a person responds is contingent on their emotional maturity or immaturity. And some people will test you, right? Some people will test your boundaries. But the truth of the matter is, it's not up to other people to do the heavier work of respecting your boundaries as much as it is for you. And that's where people get it twisted, all right? The boundary is put in place for you to adhere to more. If this isn't working out, if it's clear that someone's not getting it, okay, what do I need to do? And again, you got to ask yourself, do I fear, well, what do I desire more in life? Do I want to be liked or do I want to be valued? Most people immediately would say, well, I want to be valued. But can you prove that in your actions and how you navigate situations? Or are you trying to be liked by everyone? Well, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, or I don't want to be taken the wrong way, or I don't want to be perceived as mean or whatever. Right? There are some people who are just downright nasty and they use, boundary talk as a ways to establish their dominance. And then there are other people who genuinely like, yeah, look, we're cool and I want to keep that. Or, hey, look, I do value you in my life to some degree, as in the sense of I love you, but I don't like how I'm being treated. So I'm just putting you on notice, just let you know what's up, and we can move from there. Okay. When you are practicing boundaries versus just preaching about it, it will protect you. It will also protect your relationships. And they don't have to be these grand boundaries. Start small. Maybe this week I challenge you to think of one small boundary. Apply it to yourself first. Again, if it's like you doom scroll towards the end of the night and you notice yourself being overstimulated and overwhelmed, all right, my boundary is this. 9, 10, I put my phone in another room. I let it charge there. I go to bed. Lights out. That's a boundary. It's not about demanding other things. It's usually what you're doing when no one else is watching. So just think about it and execute. And remember, the people who have a problem with your honest boundaries, the people you fear setting boundaries with, are usually the main people that need to have a boundary in place when it comes to your relationship. And the reason you know that is because you're uncomfortable about doing it, which means that you have some changes and responsibility and accountability to show up to. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.